The attorney placed a folder in my hands and said quietly, we found this. I think you should see it. I opened the folder. One glance and my legs buckled. I barely caught myself from falling. I gripped the folder, my voice shaking. Take me home first. I need a moment. But when I walked through the front door, strangers were moving through my home. Cases of jewelry were being carried out of the bedroom. My bridal jewelry, the pieces my parents had spent 20 years collecting for me, every priceless heirloom, hauled out and shoved into a safe right in front of me. I rushed over and grabbed the movers. What do you think you're doing? Put my things down. They shook my hands off without a flicker of expression, loading item after item into the safe. Then one of them turned to me and said, "From now on, your jewelry, accessories, handbags, and gowns are all under Miss Swanson's control. If you want to use any of them, you write a 5,000-word request and submit it through the internal approval portal. Ms. Swanson approves it, you get your things. She doesn't, you don't." I was shaking so hard, I couldn't stop. I pulled out my phone and called Fergus. Belinda answered. Her voice was bright, almost amused. "Wow, one day, and you're already well enough to come crawling to him. I knew it. You were faking the whole thing just to squeeze out more money. And all that nonsense about going into labor soon. Your due date isn't until next week." "Oh, right, Mamie. I almost forgot. Since your due date is next Wednesday, I'll only cover the medical expenses if you deliver on that exact day. Baby comes any other day? That's on your own dime." I held everything in, every ounce of fury pressed down tight. "Belinda Swanson, who gave you permission to touch my jewelry? Tell your people to return my things right now, or I'm calling the police and reporting you for theft." Belinda scoffed, not a shred of concern in her voice. "Your things? Miss Fox, do you even remember who you are? You were a nobody clerk. You married CEO Henson. That's the only reason you ever got to wear jewelry worth tens of millions or touch gowns worth millions. You're so obsessed with money, you can't even buy milk tea without spending CEO Henson's cash. Who's to say you won't turn around and sell off the jewelry, the accessories, the luxury goods he gave you? As CEO Henson's secretary, it's my duty to protect his assets. So from now on, unless I give you permission, don't even think about touching any of it. Belinda Swanson, you've gone too far." I was shaking with rage. "Too far." She laughed, light and unbothered. "Oh, that reminds me. I hear your mother is still staying at the hospital our CEO, Henson, invested in, right? Honestly, a broke little woman saddled with a blood-sucking wreck of a mother. She's been sick for how many years now? Who knows how much of CEO Henson's money she's wasted. So, to keep his money from being thrown away any further, I had someone escort your mother out." The room tilted. My knees nearly buckled and I couldn't stop shaking, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. I screamed into the phone. "Belinda Swanson, have you lost your mind? My mother can't leave her oxygen chamber. What you've done is murder." I hung up and threw myself into the car, racing straight to the hospital. That was when I found out Belinda had taken my mother's VIP suite and given it to her own mother. Some of the hospital's senior staff were people I'd promoted years ago. They'd gotten my mother into a new room just in time, close enough to disaster that I couldn't breathe when I heard. Looking at my mother's colorless face, I couldn't hold back anymore. I turned to Attorney Pierce. "Throw Belinda Swanson's mother out onto the street. Every dollar I ever spent paying off that woman's loans, every cent I covered for her mother's medical bills, I want it all back. And I'm pressing charges against Belinda Swanson. Attempted murder." I tucked the blanket tighter around my mother's shoulders. By the time I stood up, I was calm again. "Take me to the company. Since the ingrates I fed with my own hands have shown their teeth, I'll rip them out myself." The moment I walked into Sterling Group, the employees who recognized me stared with a mix of shock and barely concealed gossip. "What's Miss Fox doing here? You think she found out about CEO Henson? Came here to make a scene? She's a housewife. How's she going to fight CEO Henson? If you ask me, she'd be better off looking the other way. At least she'd still get to live like a rich man's wife." I kept my eyes straight ahead. None of it reached me. I was heading straight for Fergus's office when someone stepped in front of me. A young woman I'd never seen before, looking me up and down with open contempt. "This area isn't for people like you to just waltz into. Get out." A nearby employee rushed over to explain. "Chloe, that's Miss Fox. Let her through." But the girl called Chloe didn't flinch. She gave me a slow once-over, then smirked. "So you're the wife? This old? No wonder CEO Henson can't stand you anymore. This is a company, not somewhere for you to come make a scene. You'd better run home before CEO Henson gets here, unless you want him to dump you for real." Murmurs rippled through the staff around us. Eyes landed on me, some pitying, some hungry for the show. I let out a cold laugh, signaled my bodyguard to pin her, and slapped her across the face. Who do you think you are? You dare block my way? Chloe stared at me in disbelief, then let out a shriek like a pig being slaughtered. Who am I? Do you even know who I am? You dare hit me? I'm Chief Secretary Swanson's best friend. You hit me. You think once she finds out, she'll just let you walk away from this? She cackled wildly. You're just some washed-up old woman terrified Belinda's going to take your place as the lady of the house, so you came running over here. Let me tell you something. If Belinda wasn't so kind-hearted, if she hadn't stopped Mr. Henson from kicking you out ages ago, you'd have been sent packing long before now. You hit me. Just wait till she gets back. She'll have Mr. Henson divorce you on the spot. You'll walk out of that house with nothing. I smiled at that, then lightly patted her cheek with my hand. Then you'd better call them right now. Tell them to drag themselves over here. I came here today to divorce Fergus Henson. Only the one walking away with nothing won't be me. It'll be him. I knew the second I stepped into the building, someone had tipped Fergus off. I'd barely finished speaking when I heard footsteps. Fergus came rushing back with Belinda in tow. The moment he saw me, his face went rigid for a beat. He grabbed my hand and tried to drag me toward the exit. Not here. We'll talk about this at home. I flung his hand off. Right here. Right now. Belinda pulled the red-cheeked Chloe into her arms and suddenly burst into tears. Miss Fox, I know you're angry because I restricted your spending, and that's why you came storming into the office like this. But you really were spending too much. The company barely clears tens of millions a year. You spent over 10 million on a single necklace. And you keep transferring money out of Mr. Henson's account to buy things. Fine, this time it was just a cup of milk tea. But what about next time? If nobody stops you now, next thing you know you'll be draining tens of millions straight from the company accounts. Then what happens to all of us? I know you're angry at me. You can hit me, you can yell at me, I deserve it. But you shouldn't take it out on other employees. And you definitely shouldn't take it out on my sick mother. How could you have someone throw my mother out of the hospital? Do you know she nearly died? The moment those words left her mouth, whatever sympathy the staff had for me curdled into contempt. God, she's that awful? Fergus's expression darkened. Mamie, are you done making a scene? Belinda restricted your spending for the sake of the company. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Why do you have to go after her? If you keep this up, I really can't stay in this marriage anymore. I scoffed and flung the Instagram screenshots across the floor. Is it the company that's making this marriage unbearable for you? Or is it because you want your precious secretary to take my place? What the hell are you talking about? Fergus roared, all bluster and no conviction. Don't you dare spread lies about her. I pulled a prenatal report from my bag and hurled it in his face. Belinda Swanson is pregnant. With your child. Still going to call me a liar? And you actually wrote her a guarantee promising that once she has this baby, you give the child 5% of the company's shares? Fergus held the prenatal report. Not a flicker of guilt or embarrassment on his face. He looked at me and let out a weary sigh. Since you already know, I won't hide it anymore. Belinda is carrying my child, yes. But I'm not going to divorce you. Once her baby is born, I'll bring the child home. You can raise it together with ours. If it bothers you, I'll set her and the kid up somewhere out of the way. You'll never have to see them. The shares are just so they have something to live on. The company still goes to our child, relax. I was so furious I laughed. Fergus Henson, since when do you have any right to touch the company's shares? I don't agree to any of this. His expression darkened. Then we divorce. But don't forget, we never signed a prenup. Take it to court if you want. The company, every asset, half of it's mine. You've been a housewife for years. You probably don't even realize the company's already mine. That sad little stake you're holding? It doesn't change a thing. Forget handing out shares. The whole company's going to Bella's baby. I smiled. You seem to have forgotten something. We didn't just get married. You married into the Fox family. Nothing of mine has anything to do with you. I let you work for me for 5 years, and somewhere along the way you forgot who actually owns this company. I snapped cold. Fergus Henson, we're getting a divorce. You leave this marriage with nothing. Effective immediately, as the controlling owner of Sterling Group, I'm informing you both. You're fired. Security, get these two out of my building. Now. The silence that followed my words was absolute. For 3 long seconds, the only sound in the sprawling lobby of Sterling Group was the hum of the air conditioning. Fergus stared at me, his handsome face twisting into an ugly sneer. He let out a sharp, incredulous bark of laughter. Security? You're calling my security on me? Mamie, you've really lost your mind. 5 years at home, and you're utterly delusional. He turned to the head of security, a burly man named Miller, who had just arrived, with 3 guards. Miller, escort my wife to the basement parking. If she resists, carry her. She's pregnant and hysterical. Miller didn't move. He didn't look at Fergus. His eyes were locked on me. He swallowed hard, adjusting his earpiece, and then offered me a sharp, respectful nod. Miller. Fergus barked, his face flushing violently. Are you deaf? I said, get her out of here. Mr. Henson. A cool, measured voice echoed from the entrance of the lobby. Attorney Pierce strode through the sliding glass doors, flanked by 2 sharp-suited auditors and 4 uniformed police officers. Pierce pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose, clutching a thick leather briefcase. Mr. Miller's paycheck comes from the Fox Family Trust. He is not deaf. He simply knows who his actual boss is. Fergus froze. Belinda, who had been clutching his arm like a frightened bird, shrank back at the sight of the police. Chloe, still sporting the red handprint on her cheek, pressed herself against the wall, her eyes darting like a trapped rat. Pierce, what the hell are you doing here? Fergus demanded, though the first tremor of panic was finally bleeding into his voice. This is an internal company matter. There is no company matter involving you anymore, Mr. Henson, Pierce said, smoothly, opening his briefcase and pulling out a stack of documents. He turned to the stunned crowd of employees. As of 3 minutes ago, the board of directors has unilaterally terminated Fergus Henson's contract as CEO of Sterling Group, pending a criminal investigation for corporate embezzlement. Terminated? Fergus roared, lunging forward. You can't terminate me. I own 50% of this company. I am her husband. I took a slow step forward. The heels of my shoes clicked like gunshots against the marble floor. You really didn't read the papers you signed 5 years ago, did you, Fergus? I tilted my head, looking at him not as a husband, but as a pest I had finally decided to exterminate. You didn't marry me. You married into the Fox family. A matrilocal arrangement. My father built this empire, and my name is the only one on the holding company's shares. Your title as CEO was a gift, a salary, a role. I let you play because I loved you and wanted you to feel like a man. I smiled, and there was no warmth in it. You own nothing. You have nothing. The suit on your back was bought with my pocket change. Fergus's face drained of color. The smug, condescending patriarch he had played for the last 5 years shattered in an instant. No, that's illegal. The marriage laws. Prenuptial agreement. Appendix B, Section 4. Pierce interrupted, handing a copy to him. In the event of infidelity, your severance is forfeit. You leave with exactly what you brought into this marriage, which, if I recall my inventory correctly, was a leased Honda Civic and $40,000 in student debt. Belinda yanked at Fergus's sleeve, her voice shrill and trembling. Fergus, what is he talking about? Tell them they're lying. Tell them to get out. Oh, Belinda, I murmured, turning my gaze to her. You thought you hit the jackpot, didn't you? You thought you were stealing a billionaire. I let out a low laugh. You didn't steal a billionaire. You stole my employee. A fired, broke employee. Belinda's eyes widened in horror. She looked from me to Fergus, searching his pale, sweating face for a denial. When he couldn't provide one, she took a hasty step back from him. But the jewelry, Belinda stammered, pointing a shaking finger at me. I took your jewelry. I locked it in the safe. You can't touch it. That's exactly why these gentlemen are here, I said, gesturing to the police officers. One of the officers stepped forward, unhooking the handcuffs from his belt. Belinda Swanson, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of grand larceny and extortion. The estimated value of the jewelry removed from the Fox residence exceeds $20 million. What? Belinda shrieked, backing away so fast she tripped over her own stilettos and fell hard onto the marble floor. No. I am the chief secretary. I was securing company assets. Fergus, tell them. Fergus didn't even look at her. He was staring at the termination papers in his hands, his lips moving silently as he read the clauses that were systematically destroying his life. The officers hauled Belinda to her feet, ignoring her frantic sobbing. Mom, you have the right to remain silent. I'm pregnant, she screamed, thrashing against the officers. I'm carrying the heir to Sterling Group. You can't do this to me. The only thing you're carrying I said quietly, stepping close enough so only she could hear, is the bastard child of an unemployed fraud. Enjoy prison.
Bella.
I hear the maternity ward at the state penitentiary is lovely this time
Of year.
As they dragged her toward the doors, her screams echoing through the lobby, I turned my attention back to Chloe. She was shivering, pressing a hand over her mouth. You, I said. Chloe whimpered, dropping to her knees. Chemist. Fox, Mamie, please, I didn't know, I swear I didn't know. Pack your desk, I said coldly. And Pierce? Make sure human resources blacklists her across the entire industry. I don't want her hired to clean toilets in this city. Understood, Miss Fox, Pierce replied. Finally, I looked back at Fergus. The papers slipped from his hands, scattering across the floor. He looked up at me, his eyes wide, pleading. Mamie, he whispered, his voice cracking. Mamie, baby, please. We've been together for 8 years. You're pregnant. We're having a family. I made a mistake. She seduced me. It meant nothing. The sheer audacity of his cowardice made my stomach turn. 10 minutes ago, he was proudly announcing his mistress's pregnancy. Now, staring down the barrel of poverty, he was throwing her under the bus. Miller, I said, my voice dead of any emotion. Throw this trash out onto the street. If he tries to enter the building again, break his legs. Yes, ma'am. Miller gestured to his guards. They grabbed Fergus by the arms. Mamie, wait. You can't do this. I built this company for the last 5 years. You need me. Fergus thrashed, his shoes scraping frantically against the floor as they dragged him backward. I'm the father of your child. Mamie, I turned my back on him. I didn't watch him get thrown out the glass doors. I didn't watch him stumble onto the pavement. I looked up at the stunned employees of Sterling Group. The show is over, I announced, my voice carrying clearly through the silent lobby. Anyone who is hired by Fergus Henson or loyal to Belinda Swanson has until 5 o'clock to clear out their desks. The rest of you get back to work. I'll be taking over as acting CEO immediately. The next 5 days were a masterclass in total destruction. I didn't just want Fergus and Belinda ruined. I wanted them erased. Sitting in the plush leather chair of the CEO's office, I methodically dismantled every single safety net Fergus thought he had. Pierce's forensic accountants tore through the company books like wolves. It turned out the reason the company barely cleared tens of millions, as Belinda had so stupidly admitted, was because Fergus had been siphoning funds into offshore shell companies for 2 years, preparing for the day he would inevitably try to divorce me. $3.4 million, Pierce said, sliding a thick file across my desk. All traced to an account under Belinda Swanson's brother's name. Send it to the DA, I said, not even looking up from the quarterly reports. Add it to his embezzlement charges. Meanwhile, reality was hitting the Swanson family like a freight train. With Belinda in jail, unable to post her $3 million bail, the bills for her mother's hijacked VIP hospital suite went unpaid. I didn't just have her thrown out. I had the hospital's legal department sue the Swanson family for the medical expenses they had fraudulently billed to Fergus's corporate account. On Wednesday, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered it, putting it on speaker. Mamie, please. Fergus's voice was hoarse, hollowed out. He sounded like a man who hadn't slept in a week. He probably hadn't. All of his personal credit cards had been frozen. The penthouse he thought he owned had its locks changed by my security team. The luxury cars were in the company's name and had been towed. To whom am I speaking? I asked, flipping a page of my document. It's Fergus. Mamie, please don't hang up. He sounded like he was weeping. I have nothing. I'm sleeping in a motel. The police came to see me today. They're talking about 30 years in federal prison for the embezzlement. Mamie, I'll do anything. I'll sign away my parental rights. I'll never bother you again. Just call off the lawyers. 30 years. I mused, tapping my pen against the desk. Pierce told me it would only be 20. Good to know the justice system is exceeding my expectations. Mamie, you loved me, he screamed, his desperation turning into venom. You're a monster. You're carrying my child, and you're trying to destroy me. You destroyed yourself, Fergus. I said, my voice chillingly calm. You touched my mother. You let your whore touch my mother's oxygen chamber. The fact that you are still breathing is a testament to my self-control. Enjoy the public. Defender. I hung up and blocked the number. Just as I set the phone down, A sharp, twisting pain bloomed in my lower abdomen. I gasped, gripping the edge of the mahogany desk. It wasn't the dull ache of Braxton Hicks. It was sharp, radiating, and undeniable. My water broke. I pressed the intercom button.
Pierce, get the car.
It's time. The contrast between my reality and theirs could not have been starker. I was rushed to the same private hospital my family owned. A team of the city's finest obstetricians was waiting for me. The suite was filled with fresh flowers, soft lighting, and the scent of lavender. My mother, recovering well in the adjacent wing, was wheeled in to hold my hand. For 12 hours, I labored. It was agonizing, brutal work, but I was surrounded by absolute safety. There was no fear. There was only the future. At 2:14 a.m. on Thursday morning, the cries of a healthy baby girl echoed through the room. The doctor placed her on my chest. She was tiny, red, and perfect. As I looked down at her, a profound sense of peace washed over me. She would never know the cowardice of her father. She would only know the strength of the woman who protected her empire. "We'll call her Victoria," I whispered to my mother, who was crying softly beside me. Victoria Fox. A week later, I was resting in my estate, rocking Victoria to sleep, when Pierce arrived with his final report. "You're going to want to hear this, Miss Fox," Pierce said, taking a seat opposite me in the sunroom. "Go ahead," I murmured, gently stroking my daughter's cheek. "Belinda Swanson miscarried," Pierce said flatly. The stress of the holding cell, combined with severe dehydration from her crying fits, the doctors said the pregnancy was high risk to begin with due to her lifestyle. I felt a fleeting second of pity for the unborn child, innocent in all this, but nothing for the mother. And her trial, scheduled for next month. But it gets better. Fergus Henson was arrested 2 days ago trying to board a flight to Mexico. He used the last of his cash to buy a fake passport. Customs flagged him immediately because he was a flight risk. The judge denied bail. He is currently sitting in the exact same county jail as
Ms. Swanson.
I looked up, a faint smile touching my lips.
Did they put them in the same cell block?
No, but they did run into each other in the visitors' corridor, Pierce said, pulling out a tablet. He tapped the screen and handed it to me. A guard managed to get security footage. I looked at the screen. It was black and white, lacking audio, but the story was crystal clear. Fergus, wearing an orange jumpsuit, looked emaciated and terrified. Belinda, similarly dressed, her hair a greasy, matted mess, spotted him from across the
hall.
The moment she saw him, she didn't run to him for comfort. She lunged at him, like a rabid dog. Even without sound, I could see her screaming, her nails raking across his face, as she blamed him for her ruined life, for her lost baby, for her mother being dumped in a state-run nursing home. Fergus, cornered and furious, shoved her back so hard she hit the wall. Guards swarmed them in seconds, beating them both down with batons, pressing their faces into the dirty linoleum floor. They looked like exactly what they were, rats fighting in the gutter. I handed the tablet back to Pierce. "Delete it. I don't ever need to see their faces again." "Of course, Miss Fox," Pierce said, taking the tablet. "There is one last piece of business. The board is asking when you intend to formally take the reins of the company." I stood up, holding Victoria against my shoulder, and looked out the massive bay windows of my estate. The morning sun was rising over the sprawling manicured lawns, casting everything in a warm, golden light. My mother was safe.
My
daughter was safe. My empire was entirely my own. "Tell the board I will be returning on Monday," I said, my voice steady and
clear.
"Sterling Group has been dormant for 5 years. It's time we woke it
up."
I looked down at Victoria, who opened her dark eyes to look at me. "We have a legacy to build."